Hello, my name is Guy Lamunyon, and I'm the Smart Advisor for Northern Arizona, and have recently been appointed Regional Coordinator for the state of Arizona. So this is a recreation of a video that I did at the SMART conference. There was a technical difficulty, so I'm redoing the exact presentation from the conference. So I started with rational recovery. In about 1990, I'd gone to a professional education series and heard Mark Kern give a talk that it was possible to treat people without using the 12 steps. So I got to know Mark and was referred to Jack Trimpe. Rational Recovery started doing those groups in 1990, did some professional presentations, one at NADAC, National Association of Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselors, in the early 90s, and I called it Treating the 12-Step Resistant Client, looking for people that wanted to learn new, different, and better ways to bash people with the 12 steps, but I was presenting something else, Rational Recovery, at that time. So I served on the Rational Recovery Board of Directors until the SMART began. I relocated to Arizona and found no SMART groups here. So I started several SMART groups in Northern Arizona and had some publications. But this is a presentation about relapse prevention. So I've been using relapse prevention since 1983. I've been working in addiction care since 1975. I've taken extensive trainings in relapse prevention from Terence Gorski, the Synapse treatment model, and most recently I developed a 44-bed specialty relapse prevention program for the Department of Veterans Administration in Prescott, Arizona. In order to get into this, initially I had to have had 4 full rehabilitations before even setting foot in this program. So I'm knowledgeable about the needs of people that have chronic relapse problems. So what can we say about this? It's a very predictable outcome of treatment or rehabilitation, and it's going to happen to people in your group. So it's something that we, Smart Recovery, have to cope with. If you don't understand relapse, you don't understand addiction. So people that get frustrated really haven't learned about it, or maybe you've been recovery prone, you quit the first time, it was good for you, expect everybody else to do the same. And that for severely relapse prone people, like my folks at the VA, this is just part of their recovery. So publications on this, earliest one, 1982, Terry Gorski's Counseling for Relapse Prevention. Later publications, Marlat's 1985, Relapse Prevention publication, and his most recent, before his death, is Mindfulness-Based Relapse Prevention. We're going to get into this in a little bit of detail. So what is the rates of relapse? How often does it happen? This data shows addiction relapse in terms of other chronic lifestyle problems like diabetes, hypertension, and asthma. About 40 to 60% rate of relapse. Kind of an average maybe for most of these. Source for this is Journal of American Medical Association, 2000. And when does relapse occur? So this chart or graph that shows when relapse occurs, and for the various addictions, heroin, smoking, and alcohol, and they tend to relapse similarly, mostly over the first 90 days. So maybe the 12-step people do have something with increased participation in the first 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days, if you will. So Smart Recovery is an audience often of skeptics. You got to prove it to me, Guy. So here's some research about relapse prevention. This is a meta-analysis. This is done at University of Washington out of Dr. Marlat's group. And a meta-analysis is using computer techniques to assess multiple research projects and come out with an outcome. So this meta-analysis looked at many publications on relapse prevention and found that indeed it is better than treatment as usual or the regular treatment for addictions. I talked about mindfulness-based relapse prevention, Marlat's last work, and this is the results of that. So for the first 3 months, this outperforms treatment as usual. By month 4, there doesn't seem to be a difference. So what do we do about this? For smart recovery, maybe we should emphasize mindfulness from the beginning. It seems to be something that's helpful. Another thing is, under what circumstances do relapse happen? And this is out of Alan Marlatt's work, and it's saying that #1 cause of relapses is negative emotional states, negative thinking. We talked a little bit earlier about positive psychology, so maybe that's something we want to incorporate more into SMART. Social pressure, of course, people take themselves to the situations to have the social pressure. That's easily avoided. Interpersonal conflicts, relationship problems, frequent cause of relapse. Urges and temptations, that's cravings, just in the 6 to 11% range. Not as major of a problem as I would have thought. Testing personal control, people really want to see, can I handle it? Can I have just one? And positive emotional states are certain people that drink when happy, the jocose type. And negative physical states, this is physical illness, chronic pain, things like that, 3 to 9%. So where do I go for SMART tools and resources on relapse prevention? Go right to the website. It's great links. You can download the appropriate tool, take it to your group. How to cope with backsliding, other alternate activities, trigger homework sheet, steps to recovery rather than relapse, backward steps to addiction, how to prevent it, and lifestyle balance, which is being emphasized here. And from our newest, latest, greatest manual, our disarm tool, thought-stopping technique, and urge surfing. And you saw this slide on urge surfing earlier. It just happened to be in the presentation. Also out of Marlatt's work, mindfulness-based relapse prevention is a sober breath activity, and it actually is audio tape you can download to use in your groups. It's about 15 minutes. It's really a good one. Stop, observe, breathe. Stress reduction, relaxation, mindfulness technique, whatever you want to call it. Expand your awareness and respond mindfully. Don't react, respond. Think about the consequences of your act before you take them. So this is a good one. Now, last time I looked, the small book by Jack Trimpey was still on our reading list. So the beast concept, I think, is still valid. Recognizing boozing opportunities, or the feast beast, or for people quitting smoking, Smokey the Beast. Recognize the voice, accuse the voice of malice, you're not going to get me this time. Self-control, identify self-control, you can do it, and treasure your sobriety. So these are the SMART tools, but I'm really going to talk about tools from Center for Applied Sciences, relapse prevention tools, mostly is developed by Terence Gorski. So of this model, I'm going to talk about 3 parts in this presentation. Developmental model of recovery. I like this better than Prochaska and DeClement stages of change. Relapse warning signs, 37 relapse warning signs, and evidence-based practice, and post-acute withdrawal and what to do about that. So a little bit about relapse theory. Relapse is part of the management of any chronic lifestyle problem. We saw that earlier, on the chart. People don't necessarily relapse more than any other chronic lifestyle problem. Expecting 0 as an outcome rate is unrealistic, and we know people coming to SMART recovery are going to relapse and suffer with that, so we just ask them to come back and what did you learn about that, instead of guilting and shaming them and making them raise their hand and stand up and identify as a newcomer. It is realistic, however, to reduce the rates of relapse and to manage relapse more effectively. So how do we measure that? How do we know if we're managing relapse more effectively? It's occurring less often. It's getting shorter in duration. It's having less severe consequences for administrative types, insurances, Obamacare. It's less expensive to manage. So on to developmental model of recovery, and I like this particular model better than Prochaska and DeClement. I have them lined up in a crosswalk. Prochaska and DeClement model in action phase. It's just action. You take action, doesn't really specify it or give you any steps or phases. In the synapse model, it's the action phase is broken up into early, middle, and late recovery tasks. Developmental model of recovery, this model is developed by clinical observations, interviews with long-term sober alcoholics, interviews with counselors, and a literature review. So this is naturalistic research, more like is used in sociology and anthropology. A major part of relapse prevention is the phases or warning signs of relapse, how to identify them to take action before the relapse happens. So this is the list that's going to be on the link that you'll have for warning signs. This is research-based, and it's proven to accurately predict a relapse. So if you use this, you can help your folks to prevent relapse. So it's mild symptoms to severe symptoms. I feel nervous, I have life problems, I overreact, I'm impulsive, I get too focused on one area, I'm down, blue, I have wishful thinking, yeah I do. I make plans that don't succeed, things don't work out for me, I feel confused sometimes. I get irritated and easily annoyed with my friends, I'm angry, frustrated, don't eat right, have trouble sleeping, have periods of depression, really don't care what happens, feel like things aren't going to work out, sorry for myself, I'm thinking about drinking, lying to other people, and I feel angry at the world in general, and all of a sudden I'm drinking. So what to do with this is a tool. You can download this. It's 3 pages with to be circled, and there is a guide to help you evaluate the seriousness of relapse there. You can use that either as a group exercise, if you have some group time to dedicate to this, pass this out to everyone in the group and have them do it, and then have everybody share their rating and help them make a plan in order to prevent relapse, because this is not relapse identification, it's relapse prevention. People that you identify that are having continuous relapse, episodic relapse problems can do this over time, and then they can track their risk of relapse over time down to just one number to look at every week or every day. Okay, another part of this, and Secular Organization for Sobriety explained this also, addicted self versus sober self, addicted thinking, and this is a graphic that's representing that during the relapse state, there's a little voice left over from previous attempts at sobriety that's advising people should be doing this. You promised your aunt, other, uncle, mother, brother, sister, social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor, friend, minister, that you wouldn't do this anymore, and here you are doing this again. So then people drink to suppress the thoughts. But in recovery, the sober self gets in charge, but that other little nagging voice is always hanging around. That's what our tools that we talked about previously are helpful for. So by definition, addictive self is mean, angry, lonely, greedy, self-destructive, and the sober self, intelligent, warm, caring, in touch with other people, wants to be helpful, maybe wants to be a smart facilitator. And from the book Passages Through Recovery, this relapse prevention goal is to put the sober self back in charge. So what are the tasks of early recovery? Writing a drinking history. This is motivational. It's part of motivational tools to use. It makes people realize the consequences of their addiction and the need to change. To write a history of relapsers, for chronic relapsers, to identify relapse warning signs. It's the 37 relapse warning sign exercise, to develop a plan. What am I going to do to prevent relapse? And certainly stress reduction, relaxation, mindfulness, meditation training. Middle recovery. So for early recovery tasks, maybe 6 to 18 months, learn to live sober in the world. Middle recovery, stable employment, resolve family problems. We had an earlier presentation on trust, and often people are calm. They say, I've been off alcohol for 3 days. I don't know why my wife doesn't trust me. but you know, there's a lot more to it than that. Resolving legal problems and resolving post-acute withdrawal, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Late recovery is resolving trauma from childhood for military folks, post-traumatic stress disorder, rape trauma, other forms of trauma. My experience that people will develop a mindfulness, meditation practice. By the time they get to this stage, it's about done. So, take away from this model of recovery: early, focus on self and addiction. That's enough. Middle, self and society. You know, get back to life. And third, the past if it's still plaguing people. Post-acute withdrawal is ups and downs of early recovery, difficulty sleeping, emotional dysregulation, emotions going up and down, cognition, problems thinking. You can find a complete list on Wikipedia. It's a very good reference, and you can use that reference to look for other references. The intervention for this is to educate the clients. You are going to have this. To help them identify these symptoms, to help them avoid stimulants. You know, a lot of times folks in early recovery are still drinking the stimulant drinks, Red Bull and the like, and wondering why they can't relax. Coffee, double shot, I like them. To use stress reduction, relaxation techniques again, and to encourage recovery-oriented thinking. So if you use this, educate people about post-acute withdrawal, you'll find later on they'll come back and say, that was really helpful, you know, because you gave me that education on post-acute withdrawal. I was actually able to cope with the symptoms when they came up and understand and actually help me prevent a relapse. So more information on relapse prevention, you can get a free download from Technical Assistance Publication, Series 19, Counselor's Manual for Relapse Prevention. Has all of the basic synapse model things and additional information for criminal offenders. So this is a free download. You can contact me on the SmartCal, our Smart Recovery email group, or my personal email, glamunyon@aol.com, or on Facebook, Guy Lamunyon, if you can spell it. Thanks for listening.